The Endless Delve event is upon us, and this is going to be a potentially one-of-a-kind event that'll let you get your delve fix once and for all. Now, if you're like me and you aren't a huge fan of delve because of all the extra stuff you have to do, like Nico missions, running around and grabbing sulfite, among other things, this event is going to let us bypass all of that by letting us delve as deep as we want with no limits besides our skills and the gear that we find on the floor, because this event is completely SSF. Which means that we need a very specific kind of build to be able to perform well in this event. That's going to be a build that has excellent clear, requires little to no gear whatsoever, and can thrive in solo self-found, and isn't hurt by any of the limitations that delve gives us. So I'm going to tell you what my personal choice for the event is going to be, and give you a few more options for builds I think might do well for this kind of event. So let's get into my choice, which is the Essence Train Contagion Trickster. Why hello there gamers, I just want to remind you that I do all of the content on this YouTube channel absolutely for free. So if you enjoy my content and it helps you out, make sure that you like this video and share it with your friends, because that helps me out. Also, over 80% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed, so there's about an 80% chance that you aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel, so you should probably do that right now, so that you can get the latest up-to-date content in your YouTube feed. Now without further ado, let's get back to the video. Alright boys, so this one is gonna be something pretty interesting. We've got Endless Delve coming out. Now, the build that I suggest that you play is going to be a modified version of my Essence Train Contagion. The reason that I suggest this build over some other ones is that all that matters in this event are clear speed, being able to play the game with absolutely no uniques and no crazy gear, nothing special, and it being SSF friendly. So we're not going to be able to do things like prophecies, we're not going to be able to do divination cards, anything like that. Anything extra outside of what we've got is not going to work. We are going to start with some basic uniques that'll have some pretty interesting stuff on them. I personally think that with the Essence Train Contagion build, you should be using the sword and the shield. It's going to provide us frenzy charges, it's going to provide us endurance charges, and a whole bunch of other stuff, including some ridiculous block on that shield. The shield's actually pretty OP, don't sleep on it. Now, I want to start with some very basics of delve, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know a ton about delve. I will eventually make a full guide to delve sometime in the future, but basically when we enter the delve arena, this is going to be our home for the entirety of the event. There's not going to be anything else here except for delve. Now we've got a couple things. We have a vendor here in Nico, so you're going to be able to purchase some random items. He has like resonators. These are going to allow you to craft items with the fossils that we're going to find, and we'll also be able to sell items to Nico. So any extra items or things that you need to sell, you'll be able to do that. The next thing we have over here is the Voltaxic Generator. This is where you're going to be able to actually spend your Azurite on upgrades. Now, sulfite capacity shouldn't be there as it's just going to be free, but you do want to make sure that you're upgrading darkness resistance and light radius, as well as your flares and your dynamite. Now you want maximum flares, you want duration, you want radius. Dynamite, I don't particularly know if the damage or the radius matters too much on these, maybe for bosses or something like that, but you really just want to have a maximum of dynamite. You want to stay up to date with this as much as you can. This is going to be very important for what I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes. I know that we're going to have a vendor that's going to have all of the different gems that you can possibly get. They're going to be selling us currency, so we'll be able to swap between different currencies, like you'll be able to trade, like, you know, jewelers for fusings, etc., etc. We have our stash. This is going to be solo self-found, so guild stash won't be there. So we're going to be starting all the way up here at the top. Now the monster levels are going to begin at like 1, I think they said, so we'll be able to do this right away. And you're just going to work your way down. We're going to be moving down. There's going to be different nodes, like Azurite nodes. You'll see things that give you armor, things that give you gems, random items, and then you're going to start seeing some specific nodes as you go down, like ones that have currency on them. But as we go much further down into here, if I can find any of them, you'll see things like this. Okay, so we've got something that contains fossils. You'll see these like abyssal chambers. What I'm really looking for, okay, so this is what I was looking for. Something that contains like insert item type here. There's going to be ones of this for like cold, fire, chaos, all kinds of different stuff. These kinds of nodes are going to be something that you're really going to be looking for as you explore through the depths here. This map is essentially endless. And what I suggest that you do is you keep going down deeper as far as you can until you can't handle the level of monsters anymore, and then you start going sideways. You can go sideways infinitely as well. And in this delve event, we're not going to have to worry about there being, you know, sulfite. You can just go as deep as you want. So you'll be able to go like super sideways, down, up, whichever way that you really want to go. It doesn't matter. That's most of what we need to talk about on the chart. The actual Azurite mine itself, there are a couple things to keep in mind here. Now, in the Azurite mine, you'll see this thing that's stacking up over here called darkness. Whenever you are outside of the light of either a flare or the actual card itself, you are going to start taking this stacking debuff that will eventually kill you. Now, one thing to keep in mind as well is that most effects on enemies aren't going to work while you're in the darkness. You'll see that I can't actually hit any of these enemies whatsoever while we're here in the darkness. Now, the darkness isn't going to do a lot of damage to you very early on, but as you get deeper into the Azurite caverns, it will do more and more damage. Now, you're going to see that even very early on, I almost immediately died there as soon as we got to 100 darkness. It like ramped from like 0 to 100. So next thing is we're going to actually show you what it looks like to progress to a node. So when you click a node, you're going to be teleported into the Azurite cavity or wherever you're going to. This is the Azurite mine or heading towards a Tier 2 Azurite. You're going to step in this little circle here, and you're going to follow the little engine that could, our little light source. You're going to run through, you're going to kill enemies, and the main thing that you want to be looking for while you're doing this are little side zones. And these side zones are going to have things like fossils, they're going to have things like just like little crates that you can pop open, and they'll have all kinds of items. These are going to be very, very important for much later on when we're going to start crafting some gear. Now, I'll talk about that more in the actual path of building section when we're talking about the path of building that I made specifically for this build. Now, keep in mind, it's not going to perform specifically like this because we're not going to have all this crazy gear that I've got for here. This is solo self-found. There's not going to be any impressive items, but you can just follow the actual path of building and have most of what you're looking for. When we get all the way here to the end, you're going to have some kind of event. This one is Azurite, meaning we have to click it and kill some monsters. And then after we kill everything, it's going to give us a big explosion of loot. And then once you've actually completed the event, you can pick up your items, whatever those might be. And then you can click on the crawler and progress to the next area. You'll keep going down. You'll keep going whichever direction that you've decided to go. Grab all the cool little nodes that you see around here, because this is pretty much the entirety of what we're going to be able to do. And that's pretty much it. There's not going to be anything more. It's just going to be straight delve. You can go as deep as you want. Now, I did say that you want to look out for those little caverns on the side. You can use these flares, and you can use dynamite to be able to explode things as you're walking around. So that's pretty much it for the basics of Delve. There's a lot more in-depth stuff that you can get. I'll try to talk about that in like a later full Delve guide video, but you don't need to know too much more just for this basic event. The next thing I want to talk about is why I chose this build. Now, this build in particular isn't exactly what it's going to be in the POB, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The main reason that I chose this build is it works very well with very little gear. It has excellent clear and excellent recovery without investing anything into it. With Essence Drain Contagion, you're just going to be clearing out as many mobs as you possibly can. You'll be able to recover through Essence Drain itself, also through the Trickster Ascendancy. It does pretty respectable clear and has some level of single target, which you're really not going to need too much in this event, so it should be fine. You can use Withering Step, you can use Wither Totems if you like. It is pretty flexible, but I want to actually go into the path of building now and talk to you about the changes that I made to it as compared to my normal build, so let's jump over there. Alright, so now that we're here in the path of building, there are quite a few changes that I've made to this specific tree, as well as the skills and the items and the configuration and the notes and all kinds of stuff. Some basics that I want to go over on the tree because this has changed quite a bit specifically for the Delve event. Early on, it's going to stay mainly the same. We're just getting chaos damage, life, some good stats here, chaos damage and resistance, some life, some stats, some life. Pretty much unchanged. However, as soon as we get to even the next step is going to be a little bit different. Now, normally we'd be going over here and we'd be getting acrobatics and phase acrobatics. However, because we're going to be given that awesome shield, we really don't want to go into acrobatics yet because it's going to reduce our chance to block, which isn't good. So we're going to avoid this for now, and we're going to move down and get some life as well as some resistances here. The rest stays the same. Damage, we're going to get some elusive effect and chance to get elusive, some life, and some other life. On the next set of levels here, we're going to be doing the standard of moving into some life and damage, moving over here and grabbing Wicked Ward just because there's no reason not to. We're going to grab some life here as well as some life and mana here. We'll also come down and grab Wind Dancer as well as some life over here. Now, when you do get to around level 90 is when I'm going to suggest that you swap over to Dodge. Also, we're going to be grabbing Eldritch Battery and Mind Over Matter. The reason that we swap over to Dodge at around 90 is because of an item that we're going to try to craft. We'll talk about that in a moment. But until this point, you're really going to be probably sticking with that sword and shield that you had before. They're honestly pretty solid. I wouldn't replace the shield until you swap to this one weapon, but you may be able to put like a better wand or something on at some point. Not 100% certain, but that's what I'm going to suggest for now. We'll have to see how it progresses. So if you want to see how the build progresses and how we do, make sure to follow me over on Twitch because I am going to be streaming this live. So make sure that you check that out. It's going to be pretty interesting, I think, if you want to get a sneak peek on how it's going before you make your decision. Now, beyond that, I have changed the skills quite a bit. Essence Drain, we're not going to have a a good slot for it early on, try to keep it in like a 3 or a 4 link. Just use these links right here at first, because before you get the staff, you're really not going to be able to get access to anything more than that. We do want to keep Blight in our body armor as the main link, just because Essence Drain doesn't need a lot of links early on. 4 is plenty. And Blight will be better for some more tanky enemies that you might want to be killing with a couple more links in them. Other than that, nothing else really changes here. The 6th link on Essence Drain is Decay, just because we're not going to be able to make good use of Empower. I doubt anybody's really going to be able to get an Empower and level it up. I mean, good luck with that. If you do, then more power to you, but Decay is just going to be good to add a little bit more damage to our Essence Drain. This isn't an amazing link, but honestly, if you look at like the different damage things that are available here, it's Arcane Surge, Cast on Death, Empower, or less duration unless you want to do traps. So there's really not a lot to link in here. Decay is about it. Other than that, most of this is about the same. When you do swap over to the staff, you can pop in Enduring Cry and Blood Rage. That's going to give you those endurance charges and frenzy charges that you lose out from not having the sword and the shield. As for the items, I kept these extremely budget. This is like the most budget items that you could possibly get. These are the 2 starter items that we're going to be getting. You'll get a few more than those, but these are the ones that I suggest you use. The rest of these items are legit just like life, energy shield, evasion, and resist. That's it. Nothing special here. This should carry you through most of the actual game. As you level up and get some more gear, try to replace what you can if you do find anything good. You can craft some items with fossils, but the main thing that I want to talk about is a staff. Now, this staff itself is going to be, I think, relatively easy to craft. You're just going to need to find any halfway decent staff that has 6 sockets, and you're going to be using aberrant fossils to craft this. This is going to give us just more chaos modifiers. We're really just looking for level of all chaos skill gems and chaos damage over time multiplier. This is very similar to the unique staff, but this might actually be obtainable with fossils. So that's what I would suggest that you do. You can also use that to craft maybe some other gear that has chaos damage over time multiplier on it, but really make use of those fossils, like the life fossils that allow you to craft some life gear, some dense fossils for the helmet to give you a little bit more energy shield to be able to use your Eldritch Battery, Wicked Ward, and Mind Over Matter combo. All of that coming together will help quite a bit. Now, the notes aren't as extensive this time because I don't really have that much to talk about. It's just going to give you a couple little tips for what is going to be going on in the Endless Delve event. Not too much there. The configuration I've changed around a little bit. This time, we're only going to be having 7 Withered stacks. I don't think we're going to be able to get much more than that. We are not going to be fighting bosses since we aren't really going to be doing any real bossing. It's just delve. The rest of this should be good. Frenzy and endurance charges from those 2 weapons, or the weapon and the shield that we got. I do want to talk a little bit about some of my other builds. I think that this is probably the best one, and it's a reason that I suggest it first. I think like most of you, if you're really undetermined on what you want to do, or you don't have some other build, should be thinking about doing this one particularly. I think it's going to be better than a lot of other ones out there simply for the delve event. I think there are some builds that might be able to work, although they aren't going to be as good in my opinion. The ones that I think might be halfway decent are going to be Creeping Frost. Keep in mind, I am not going to be going deep into all of these Path of Buildings to change all the different pieces, just because these aren't my first choices. Basically, just use the budget items as you can and swap out any uniques that you don't have for just some random good items with life and resistances, and you should be fine. Creeping Frost should be pretty solid. It's pretty easy to get going. You don't need the cluster jewels. You don't need any kind of crazy gear. This would be another build that's really good with that shield. Like Glancing Blows, you probably don't need anything else but that shield, and it'll give you what, like 60% block and spell block with just Glancing Blows, and then if you grab these nodes, you're just capped on block instantly. You don't need anything special with that shield. It's going to be pretty overpowered. So it should be pretty good. The skills are pretty solid. You don't need to change anything here. You could legitimately consider swapping in Vortex. I know I hate Vortex, but for delve, it might actually be okay. You could swap in Vortex instead of Creeping Frost, change out Greater Multiple Projectiles for just Hypothermia. You could do that if you wanted to. I think it would be fine. The rest of this is fine. Just avoid anything in here that obviously you can't get. Most of the budget items should be fine. I think like a Cyclone build should be okay. I think a Lancing Steel build should be okay. That Lancing Steel Steel Jewel drops really frequently. I don't think that you have a problem getting it. The main issue with these builds is going to be a weapon. I think getting a hold of Terminus Est might be a little bit harder in Delve SSF than it would be alternatively, so that might be something that you not want to do. Other than that, I think that most of my other builds really aren't a good choice for this besides Poison Blade Vortex. Now, the thing about Poison Blade Vortex specifically is that this does require a lot of uniques for the most part. However, you can just remove all of these. You don't need to use the Cold Iron points. You probably will get some Obliteration wands. You don't need the Devouring Diadem. You don't need the Embalmer. You don't need Corlitos. You can just take the actual Perfect Agony on the tree. Most of this should be perfectly fine. I don't need to change too much here. It should be pretty much okay. You're not going to get the cluster jewels, but most everything else should work. Like I said, I'm not making full path of buildings for these just because it's going to take a lot of time, and I don't suggest that you play most of these other ones. Poison Blade Vortex should be okay. Just make sure that you're using the Obliteration wands or just any random wands that you can find that have good stats on them for you. Other than that, most of this is about the same. You will probably still be able to level with Caustic Arrow and Toxic Rain. That shouldn't change, but that's probably about it when it comes to most of my builds. I don't think there's much else that you want to play unless you're a very experienced player. You might be able to get away with like Toxic Rain or Pyroclast Mines or maybe even Archmage Ball Lightning if you really, really know what you're doing. But I would say stick to Edie Contagion or maybe Creeping Frost. Those are the two that I'm really going to be suggesting. So remember guys, if you have further questions, make sure to join my Discord. It's linked down in the description. Best way to get help with any of my builds, or if you have some questions about the Delve event that you really don't know how to get solved, somebody over there might be able to help you. Now, as for the Delve event itself, it should be pretty fun. I think it'll be something that you really do want to give a shot, at least for a day or so. Even if you don't play all the way through it, we may never get something like this again, so you really want to give it a shot before it's gone. But I'm going to be playing Essence Strength Contagion. Make sure to come over to my Twitch channel. We're going to be live as soon as it goes. Other than that, make sure to like this video so more people can see it, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this, and stay safe out there in raid class. And I'll see you guys in the next video.